tell me never use the word Nazi and never use the word Hitler. Now we're called Nazis and I'm called Hitler for making it happen. Thank you.
The future civilization is assured.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Welcome everybody to RadPod and Not So Chill. I'm Heidi Coot. I'm here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity. Thank you, Hi-Fi, for putting together that very difficult opener. It's important that we confront this stuff head on. I had wanted to open with some of the acts of resistance that we've been seeing from the priest at the prayer breakfast and a judge who just denied Trump's attempt to Bigfoot the Constitution, but we may as well just start with that opener. Jim?
Yeah. What we're seeing right now is the real thing. Normally I would, after the show, I would yell at Hi-Fi for showing those images without, sort of preparing people. But unfortunately, that's literally what we're facing. And I mean now, if people aren't aware, Trump just shut down HHS, CDC, NIH,
FDA,
and all communications from any health agency to American citizens. And bird flu is here, right? The $9, egg prices are there for a reason. It's because there's a very, very serious threat, a deadly threat that if it gets rampant in the human population could be catastrophic. And they're literally shutting down our entire ability to respond. And incidentally, all research into all diseases, cancer, everything, they just shut it down. They stopped it. And the really dark truth is hard for people to grasp, which is why we, focus on trivial shit.
Right.
The reason why, I'm not mad at hi-fi is because that's what these people see. I just wrote a piece about why he did that, why Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, would do that. And maybe even more importantly, why everyone ignores it, right? The only people talking about it are people yapping about it on social media. There's no serious discussion of the fact that one of the most powerful people on the planet openly, overtly, and according to all the Nazis did a literal Sieg Heil to the Fuhrer.
Yeah.
And the reason he did that briefly is because he meant it.
Yeah.
I need people to grasp this. He was saying, I picked up the ball for you. Sieg Heil. That's what he was doing. And until we sort of collectively come to grips with that, we are not going to be able to mount a resistance.
Right.
And so, that's why I'm almost done. That's why I we're going to have to have our own version of shock and awe on the left, right? That's what these people are doing. We're going to have to wake people the fuck up and get them to understand the seriousness and gravity of this situation.
Right. Hi-Fi, do you want to talk about why you opened with that before I comment?
There's a quote from George Orwell. The party told you to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most desperate command. What we are seeing is media outlets and politicians and liars and gaslighters and talking heads telling all of us, no. That wasn't a Nazi Sieg Heil. No. If anything, it was a Roman salute. Well, I think we just dispelled the myth of the Roman salute. Bullshit. You know what that was? That was a salute to blood, shit, and suffering. That is what Elon Musk is going to bring us. I'm sorry. And if people don't like the fact that I put it right in their face, maybe do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like so long before I was prepared to use the word Nazi, you guys had been using it because you guys are in the Telegram channels. You guys are paying close attention to the signaling of people like Musk and people like Thiel. And it became very, very clear to me within the last year that, as Nancy McLean said, these aren't neo anything. These people are, using a very cruel old playbook. And in all the reporting I've done in the last half a year, reading books about the Weimar years, they're using an exact replica of that playbook. And so he's doing it because he can. And I'm looking at the various media reporting. And as we've said from our friends in Media and Democracy Project, democracy dies in euphemisms. They still want to call this stuff what it is. And the worst, I'll repeat that. They still don't want to call this stuff what it is. Thanks for muting High Fidelity. I hope we have some laughs because this shit is grim. But yeah, it's here. And again, the reason I had hoped to open with the priest at the prayer breakfast, because I think it's significant that on, the first full day of this regime, there was the first true act of resistance and bravery. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but there was the defense of immigrant speech, and of course, Trump is demanding an apology, but those things are important. To see people doing brave things like that, to me, are very, very important. And I'm just reading a Joyce. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's Marianne Buddy, Bishop of D.C.
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful person who gave a respectful, extremely Christian speech. And I mean that in the best way, right?
Right.
In the way that, you know, again, I've talked about this before. I grew up with Christianity. It never bothered me. It, you
Yeah.
know, was a custom that people had, and, you know, Jesus seemed like a good person, right?
Right.
And that was what she was embodying, and the rejection, the outright bile, the truths, you know, about this brave woman who just spoke the truth to
Yeah.
power,
Yeah.
literally to his
Right.
face. And if you've
Right.
seen the reaction video,
Yeah. JD Vance,
it's
their immigrant
dark, man.
wives. Very
Yeah,
strange.
it's
Also,
all.
I was looking for the video to send to High Fidelity because I didn't know if he had seen it. And so there I was on X, which is usually the fastest way to find things, forgetting that I had retweeted it and it was at the top of my timeline. But man, the gaming, the visceral, alleged response, most of it faked up with fake check counts and, checked accounts. And it was exactly what you would expect it to be. And I'm enjoying my reprieve from, I spent the last 8 years on Twitter 24/7 telling the media what it's not doing, and I'm enjoying a reprieve from that. I want to do more thoughtful work that has more meaning. And that's part of why I'm enjoying traveling right now, because I'm going to be going to countries that have not yet handed over their democracy to this, Russian-led transnational organized crime ring. And I'm warning everybody I can possibly talk to that they've got to not sleepwalk their way into fascism the way that America did. I also want to quote from Joyce Vance's latest civil discourse titled Go Judge, where she talks about a federal judge in Seattle who put an end to Donald Trump's pretense he could undo the constitutional right to birthright citizenship. So she goes and explains how that works. But I just think, we need to find whatever we can find to
Well,
show that this is not. Go ahead, Jim. I know it's going to end in the Supreme Court, but
yeah, we have sleepwalked into fascism, right?
yeah,
It's not, we're going to. I know, like, and I still am making that sort of error, but I think
yeah,
it's important for all of us to as soon as possible get through the acceptance phase of this
yeah.
nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Oh, right.
because, and I'm not saying that you're not, I'm just saying that,
Oh, I'm talking about countries who haven't yet.
no,
I'm talking to people in countries who haven't yet.
oh, okay. Well, that's, sorry, my bad.
That's all
But
right.
here, right? Like it did. It did.
Yeah.
Like what were they shut down the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
They shut it down. They fucking shut down
Yeah. Yeah.
the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. They, they're persecuting anybody who had anything to do with DEI.
Yeah.
A perfectly reasonable, centrist sort of program to bring sanity to some institutions that needed it, and instead it has become a yellow star for people. That woke and DEI and all of that stuff is now and I mean this fairly literally, because if you go back to where this shit comes from, cultural Marxism, you know about this, right? Like this whole idea that there's this plot to take over the world with liberal ideas. That's anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It comes from Jewish Bolshevism, the idea that there's a Jewish plot that was going to take over Germany, which again brings us back to the opener. And one thing that I just need people to sort of grasp about this, because it took me a while to sort of understand that the Nazis that we're talking about, and Nancy is right, there's nothing neo about them.
Yes.
This is, I described it as the Nazi diaspora. If you know this word, it's, when people leave a country for whatever reason, because of war or pogroms or whatever, there's the diaspora. And so the Nazi diaspora went lots of different places, went to South Africa, went to South, America, also came here.
Yeah.
Including, by the way, at least 1,600 Nazis in Operation Paperclip that, basically helped jumpstart NASA. And that was classified for 40 fucking years. So, when this morning I see the NASA director send out a letter on NASA letterhead, all DEI programs and DEI employees shall immediately stop your activities because of Donald Trump's declaration that woke policies are no, it's like full on fucking MAGA Trump, get out of here, liberals. And I couldn't help but just feel like, fuck, right? They've been there all along, right?
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk literally, and I won't belabor it, but comes from it. It comes from Nazis, actual ones, like people who supported, were pro-Hitler, got arrested for being pro-Hitler, moved to Pretoria, South Africa 2 years after they started advertising a whites-only paradise. That's where he comes from. So when he does that shit, he absolutely 1 billion million % knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And the reason why, because he wants people to know, to high-fives to the Orwell quote, which I also put in my piece. That's what he's doing. He's trying to get this reality distortion field around him such that he can do a gesture which intentionally brings forth the memories of tens of millions of dead, innocent people.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Again, like, it is so grim. And I think that is part of why people are having difficulty wrapping their head around it. But it's also completely disgusting how many people are already way, way in advance obeying, like, and, step in
All of
line
them.
with this regime. People you would not expect. It's like, where's the spine? It appears to be missing. It's do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because every day I'm like, wow, didn't expect that person to go ahead and roll so quickly, but
No, they're all do. I mean, if anybody saw the inauguration, right? There's a shot of Zuckerberg and Bezos and Satya Nadella from Google, and Elmo and Howard Lutnick off to the side, which is a whole other can of fucking worms.
right.
But that's $1 trillion in personal net worth. $1 trillion in personal net worth, which is more than 25% of the net worth. The net worth of 25% of American citizens. The bottom 25%.
Right.
Fucking add up the net worth. You have less than those 4 sociopaths up there coddling this old demented fucker's balls. Sorry. You know,
It's rad pod. It's rad pod.
like, you know, I mean, these people could lose 99.9999% of their net worth and not fucking feel it at
Mhm.
all.
Yeah.
It's just numbers to them, right?
Mhm.
Elmo wants to be a trillionaire, but then
Mhm.
he's going to want to be a 10 trillionaire. And then he's going to want to
Mhm.
be 100 trillionaire until he owns
Mhm.
everything. You can't contain it.
Mhm.
He's exploding. And the only question is, are we going to be able to get the fuck out of his way or find a big enough hose?
I do not know the answer to that because it's just I've had time to like slow down and think about some of this stuff instead of just reacting viscerally every day. And my question is, do we have a chance against these billionaires? Do we have a chance against a society that is willing to work for these people without thinking about what's actually happened to their world, as Carol Cadwalader once called them, handmaidens to authoritarianism? Are we all just going to play on our phones while we march toward this darkness? And I don't know the answer to that question. We've had revolutions over history that shows that people can, when things get bad enough, revolt. But I am not sure that we have the ability to
Well,
withstand this.
so, and apologies if I've said this, but Voltaire said, those who can make you believe absurdities are those who can make you commit atrocities. When did he say that? Anybody know?
I would,
I'll let you off the hook. 1765.
yeah,
When was 1765? That was a
right.
decade before what? The
French.
American Revolution,
Yeah,
and 2 decades before what? The French
the French
Revolution.
Revolution. Yeah,
Voltaire was what? French.
yeah,
He knew
yeah,
he was commenting on what he was seeing in
right.
society in the 18th century, saying
Yeah,
those who can make you believe absurdities are those who can make you commit atrocities. And I said this in my documentary 4 fucking years ago. That's
yeah,
what this is. And so, you know, until we, you know, grapple with that concept, you know, is it going to take us being Les Miserables before, you know, we make a move on the king or whatever? I hope
yeah,
not. Because if y'all
right.
saw that movie, it sucks. It
Yeah,
sucks. Like but that's what they literally want. They want a feudalist population of sort of struggling laborers. I cannot emphasize enough like that they see themselves as controlling a mass of humanity as their end goal. And
yeah,
you know, so you know, are we going to be able to fight back on the in the rules of the game that they have engineered for themselves? Absolutely not. And that's one thing I need people to get. Stop fucking thinking about this in political normal terms.
yeah,
You'll drive
right,
yourself crazy. You'll
right.
drive yourself crazy with emotion because you
Yeah,
won't be able to get out of the sinking feeling that everything is fucking wrong. Well, it is.
yeah, yeah,
So you got to think about it in terms of warfare, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of what's happening. Why is Greenland and Canada and Panama and, you know, El Salvador and Honduras and all of these countries why are they getting attacked? It's not confusing. Look on a map. They're trying to create a goddamn Reich. And
yeah,
and you know, the key is to stop thinking about it, stop allowing people to frame this as politics,
Right.
as some kind of normal, just maybe aberration of the system. The system's done. And I don't mean this in a nihilistic sort of like whatever, but it has to change.
Yeah.
It failed. Period. End of story. We're fucked. Now,
Right.
can we get ourselves out of it? Sure. It's just how long, right?
Yeah.
There's still 350 million of us and like 6 of them. So eventually shit happens, right? It's
Right.
just how long is it going to fucking take? And so my
Yeah.
advice here is to stop thinking about it in the old terms, because you'll just make yourself nuts. You have to pop up above the fray a little bit. I'll stop here. I've said this before, but I don't care. When they're flooding the zone with shit, don't look at the fire hose. Look at the person holding it, because otherwise you will get a face full of shit. And I mean, like, literally, if they're fucking shoving a giant hose of shit in your face, don't look at it and hope that you're going to be able to figure out what the fuck's going on. You have to
Right.
step out, right? You gotta look at what's behind it and start to get into the reasons for it, because otherwise all you will be is a victim. You will be buffeted around by exactly what they want, instead of
Yeah.
being able to look at the source.
Thank you so much for that, Jim. There's a lot of that going on. And before we get to our clips with our friend John Mitchinson, who I met in July at the Byline Festival, he's a cultural philosopher. He worked on QI, was there at the beginning for 13 years, coming up with all the incredible wit on that show and all the details of that. And also a publisher, author, just a great thinker. And we talked about how scared I am that what I'm seeing currently in my travels in Britain, I have a fear that they will sleepwalk their way into this, just like we did with Biden, where we thought, okay, Biden's in, we can, rest easy for a minute. There's no time to rest easy in the UK, not when you've got somebody like Elon Musk threatening to interfere with their elections, and not when, there's only a 1 percentage point difference between, the polls between Labor and the Reform Party. So it's like there's just I have a lot of concerns, and we talk about that with John. But I want to read you something, because I wrote about I finally did my first report on Putin's kleptocracy, the Karen DeWeesha book from 2014, which shows the blueprint that was created for these oligarchs. And I just want to say that she was able to do this incredibly brilliant book because, and she writes in the intro that Russian journalists wrote part of this story when the Russian media was still free. And then she writes, and this is her in 2014. Karen, unfortunately, has passed away, but she wrote, many of the journalists died for this story, and their work has largely been scrubbed from the internet and even from Russian libraries, but some of that work remains. And what I wrote was, one way Putin's regime was able to manipulate people's reality was by simply disappearing the truth. And we are in a period where we are watching the intense effort to simply disappear the truth. And we are part of, small groups of people in defense of truth. And that has to be first and foremost. You can't have the richest man in the world getting up and doing a Nazi salute and pretend it's anything other than that. We have to stay rooted in facts and truth for people to even have a chance to somehow see their way out of this. So I bring that up because Jim, your TEDx talk scrubbed from YouTube, your American mindfuck film, scrubbed from YouTube, and Internet Archive's already being attacked. And I think we'd be very naive to think that these cruel people using a very cruel playbook that has to disappear truth for them to continue their criminality and their corruption, that they wouldn't start gunning for the archives of independence. So I'd like everybody just to do everything they can to protect their own work and, you know, just be thinking about these things, because this is our new normal.
They have like I was on Tom Hartman's show talking about Ed Martin, who I think is excuse me, the U.S. attorney for D.C. who could get involved in these kinds of cases, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Ed Martin is one of the most lunatic motherfuckers on earth. And you know me, most of you, like, that's saying something. This
Yeah.
dude, if you look, Eagle Ed Martin, if you want to look, he blocked me, which is funny. But it says right up there, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, head of the D.C. office, where they did all of the J6 prosecutions, right? Where everybody who was prosecuted, you know, not everybody went through that office, but they were involved in all of them because it was a crime that happened there, right?
Yeah.
It has immense influence. And this guy and the guy who was in there decided to bow out, and Trump put in Ed Martin.
Yeah.
Now, who the fuck's Ed Martin? If you see him, you don't even remember him, because he's this sort of weaselly little, like, mediocre white man. But he is carrying on the legacy of Phyllis Schlafly.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Like, if you look under his, where it says U.S. Attorney for D.C., it says phyllisschlafly.com. If you go there, you'll see him. And, or maybe he took it off because now he's the U.S. Attorney in D.C. But just in case you don't know, Phyllis Schlafly single-handedly prevented the ERA from being ratified in time. So even though Joe Biden performatively ratified it in the last 2 days of office, Phyllis Schlafly is the one who prevented it from actually being published and becoming the law. And Phyllis Schlafly is also the person who started the pro-life movement in the after Roe, with, guess who? Mike Flynn's mom, Helen.
Yeah.
Helen Flynn was a huge part of the pro-life movement and one of Phyllis Schlafly's best friends, right? So Phyllis Schlafly, you know, is a Dame of Malta. So she's part of the whole extremist Catholic kind of crusader thing that is encompassing everything, including Pete Hegseth and you know, all the rest of it. Trump was at this funeral, and that's her casket with the flag of the Knights of Malta on it, because that is how she identified. She was also the co-founder of the Council for National Policy, one of the most vicious anti-democratic institutions ever created on the planet. You know, had Tip Brand-Press and others that have done a lot of research on them. But what really, so Phyllis Schlafly used a nonprofit called America's Future for decades to publish her bullshit about how women should be barefoot and pregnant and should not have the rights and privileges of men. And America's Future was founded in 1946 by the co-founder of the CIA, Jack Singlob. And Jack Singlob started it in 1946 because he thought the wrong side won World War II. He was very, very angry that we didn't go after the commies instead of the Nazis. Literally, that was the thing.
Right.
And so, anyway,
Bananas.
this mess of literal Nazism coming out of World War II, this anti-communist fucking weird shit that came out of World War II. By the way, Jack Singlaw founded the CIA during Operation Paperclip, which was one of their main things. The reasons that they formed the CIA was so that they could do Operation Paperclip and other operations like that. So they had a secret way of doing it, which is why they covered it up for 40 fucking years. Anyway, Gillish Schlafly had an organization called the Eagle Forum as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jack Singlob in 2020 wrote a letter to Bill Barr, asking Bill Barr, and Jack Singlob was 98 years old at the time, can you please let off Mike Flynn from his guilty plea, right? And if you recall, Bill Barr was the lawyer who got all the Iran-Contra people off, one of whom was Jack Singlob. Anyway, Bill Barr.
Anywho,
so Bill Barr fucking does it.
yeah.
And immediately what happens is Jack Singlob gives America's future to Mike Flynn, who uses it to raise money for Stop the Steal and Fraud It and all of the shit that came before, during, and after January 6th.
Yeah. Wow.
So last thing on so fast forwarding to closer to now, and I'll end here on October 28th, 2020, which is a week before the election. Ed Martin tweeted WWG1WGA to Mike Flynn, quoted. And went on Periscope broadcasts complaining that Twitter was censoring QAnon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. And that dude is
the interim. Yeah.
And is the guy who's gonna be adjudicating all of this stuff around January 6th. So
anyway. Can I ask you, not that it really involves your uncle, not that it really matters, but I always like to kind of know. Again, I go back to what we know about Russian information warfare and the dossier showing that the Russians understand reality as they attack ours. They're very clear about reality. Looking at Ed Martin's dossier here, on the board of the Patriot Freedom Project, which advocated for Jan 6 defendants. Is this somebody who's just completely radicalized, or is this somebody who actually knows exactly what reality is? Because I'm looking at this guy like he's
he's nuts. No, he's really he's fucking crazy. Yeah. He was at January 6th with Sean Moon. Sean Moon is is AKA Bullet Head. So if you've seen the crazy Moonies motherfucker with the crown of bullets, who has a gun cult and an arms manufacturing company called Car Arms, and has like cult rallies and crazy shit. Ed Martin was at January 6th with that guy.
Yeah. Lying about it, calling it just like Mardi Gras, lying about it.
Man. I mean, it's literally putting the murderer in charge of the
Yeah.
murder investigation.
Yeah. Right.
It's bonkers, fucking bonkers. All like and you know, and no one's paying attention to that because
Right.
all this other crazy shit's going on at the same time,
Right.
right?
Right.
Which
Right.
was always the point, and
Yeah.
you know, we tried to warn you, shock and awe, man. That's what was going to
Yeah.
happen. They're going to come at us hard. They're going to do this to us. And which is why I say, like, the sooner you can just, and I don't mean to ignore it. I don't mean stuff the feeling of all the overwhelm. You can't. Don't stuff it.
Yeah.
Like, let it go. Experience it. But fucking, you have to step above it and understand that all of this is intentional. It doesn't mean it's not real. Some of these executive orders and whatnot, you know, have teeth. A lot of them don't. So there's going to be a lot of actually figuring out, you know, what is real and what isn't. But I just urge you, at least as part of your consumption time, you know, try and step out of the details and the anger and the feelings about it and try and understand it from a sort of strategic and military level. Imagine America's at war, right? Yeah. And you're interested in how the fucking war's going.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that's what I mean. Like, think of it that way, you know, open your mind a little bit, both to what's happening and also, importantly, open your mind about solutions, because it's not going to be what we hope.
We're going to have to keep on having lots of conversations about that. I asked Tom Carter, our friend, veteran newsman in DC, who's the Leonard Leo whistleblower, tried to get the New York Times, etc., to warn about Leonard Leo, which didn't happen. And I asked him what on Inauguration Day, I'm like, what's the vibe, Tom? Because he, lives right there. And he said, this inauguration is like celebrating drunk driving that murders people. Thanks, Tom. Like, that's just well done. Well done.
He's not wrong. Hey,
Fidelity.
it's getting late. We need to go on to a clip. Here's the first.
Let's go to
complacency is a concern. Yes, we have a Labour government, but if you drill down into how we got a Labour government with a large majority, and you look at the opinion polls as they stand at the moment, the Labour government is currently a single percentage point ahead of the Reform Party in the UK. That is deeply troubling. The Reform Party played an interesting tactical game. They kind of wiped out the Tories rather than Labour, which gave it sort of inflated the Labour majority here. So I think what you're actually looking at is it's much more similar in lots of ways to what has happened in Europe than perhaps exactly what's happened in America. I mean, I think there are factors to do with Trump which are different. But let's be honest, the rise of the populist right, the kind of the reining in, the kind of abandonment, I think, or the lack of courageous defense of all kinds of certainties, post-war certainties, about the role of government and the role of democracy, the primacy of democracy. I think these things are really troubling, and they're as troubling here, frankly, as.
Yeah, man. Yeah, lack of defense. Like, why aren't leaders defending democracy in any meaningful way? Obviously, exempting the leader of Ukraine, who clearly is, and a few other spots around the world. Clearly, Poland is, explaining that they're not having it. And, as far as Russian aggression, they're calling him out all the time, and Finland is as well. But like the Western leaders, like, wow, just not willing to defend democracy because we grew some billionaires. Like, I don't get it. So
well,
anyway,
it's
I'm
not
worried.
just not defending democracy, Heidi. Let's be honest about where this is going to lead. This is going to lead to violence on a very large scale. at the very least, it's going to lead to terrible things due to the lack of anything being done about climate change. We've already hit the 1.5 limit, right? It's just going to get worse, especially with these maniacs at the helm. We're just going to burn more and more gasoline, natural gas, frack more.
Liquid gold. Say you get it
Liquid-
right. That's the official word for it. Term is liquid gold. And what
Yeah,
we're gonna do is drill, baby, drill
it's-
in our national parks.
Yeah, well,
Jim.
it seems like it's heroin because it's killing all of us, but we keep going back to it. Anyway,
It is heroin, but can I say something about heroin? Because I have good news about heroin, which is that according to our new HHS director, would be heroin is good for studying.
Oh my God.
It has
right, that's right. RFK Jr. did mention
RFK
that.
Jr., if you're not aware, literally said recently that he would have never made it through college if it wasn't for heroin.
Yeah.
And it's because it solved his ADHD. So
Yeah.
having said that,
Charmed,
I
I'm sure.
urge you, if you have ADHD, do not under any circumstances try heroin. And don't try heroin anyway, but Jesus, fuck.
Yeah.
All right, hey,
Yeah.
we're gonna do the next clip real fast. Here we go.
Thank you.
Democracy is more than just party political politics. I mean, I think what it is we need to get people interested in their own destiny. Because that's what, let's be honest, that is what fascism does, right? Fascism hollows out everybody's sense of what's possible. It makes everybody feel that they have no control, that their lives are empty, and that their lives are kind of unimprovable until somebody comes along and says, I'm going to make this all right for you. I am the strong leader. I will make it all right for you. And you can see it works, because you think, well, here is a Trump or a Farage standing here and saying, hey, I'm one of you, and this has gone on long enough, and you deserve better. Well, literally spending
their time with actual billionaires. The whole people need to understand that billionaires are weapons, that the money they control is a weapon, that social media that they control is a weapon, that the media companies they control are weapons. They are trying to beat us into submission. It is a class war. It's not politics anymore. Anyway.
I've been listening to you guys say these things for 3 years, but I absolutely love what John just said there about getting people to have an interest in controlling their own destiny. Like we're just turning it over. What is that? That is so just so truly.
It happens in
Yeah.
And I think it was Nancy, or I'm not sure. Now I can't even remember what I was going to say. Never
About
mind.
controlling your own, taking an interest in controlling your own destiny.
Yes, I still can't remember. Sorry.
It's going to come
Well,
to
you know
I
what?
hope
I'm
it
going to
does.
go for the.
Do it.
Well, Jim thinks about
Save
it. Well,
me.
Jim thinks about it.
Okay, here we go. Third one.
Why do these horrible regimes fail? In the end, they fail because of human failings, because of the lack of empathy, because of fundamental. I saw a thing the other day which just shocked me deeply, and it's, as you know, we have a lot of bullshit cultural war stuff, just like you have. Maybe not quite as toxic, but pretty toxic. And it was kindness, the new woke religion. And you think, okay, that's where we've got to now. Kindness is an expression of some sort of political preference, and is an expression of weakness.
Wow.
And if we lose empathy, do you know the great book The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff. She talked about in that book, I looked this up before I talked, because it about the seventh extinction. You know, we're up to about six mass extinctions, but this mass extinction wasn't. This was a human extinction, not of nature. And she writes, what has been held most precious in human nature, the will to will, the sanctity of the individual, the ties of intimacy, the sociality that binds us together in promises, and the trust they breed. The dying off of this human future will be just as unintended as any other. Now, that's a pessimistic view, but I do think we have to see this where we are.
Yeah, that he more or less went where I was going, which is that they're trying to do a mass behavior experiment like the Soviet Union, which is what I think of.
Marcy Shore was the one
It
who
was
talked
Marcy.
about that.
That's right. There was
Yeah,
Marcy. Yeah.
Dr. Marcy Shore. Yeah.
And that's correct. And it's the difference really between Nazism and communism is not actually that serious. They're both authoritarian dictatorship that result in tens of millions of deaths whenever they show up. So I think it's important for us to understand that that's what that is what they are trying to do is steal our empathy, to his point.
Yes.
Right. Is Pete Hegseth's, for example, his actual preacher, a guy named Doug Wilson, preaches that empathy is satanic.
Wow.
Literally,
Man.
he's taken over the town of Moscow, Idaho. You can look him up. Fucking nut. But one of the most remarkable things about him is that he, and there's some others that have picked up on this, but he's, old school. He also is fine with slavery, like what thinks women's suffrage is a bad idea, all of that stuff. But his sort of, in my view, unique thing is that empathy is satanic. What you need is sympathy. You can have sympathy. You can feel sorry for people who are less than you, but you cannot use you can't invest any of your own self into somebody else's problems, because that's where Satan comes in.
Jesus.
And that is the literal mindset of these people, is they want to remove, by woke, they mean empathy.
Yeah.
Right.
So Jim, what that reminds me of is the way that this regime is weaponizing the fires against democratic leadership. And I bring it up because we still in California have public servants who have empathy, who want to do well for their state, their citizens. They want to help them. And so what do we have? We have the regime attacking that and marginalizing it, and the information warfare bleeds across nations. This pollution, bleeds across nations. I had a host at a restaurant telling me that it's the Democrats' faults about these fires. And we explained, no, it's literally like we have the Santa Ana winds that have been there before man even, walked the land. And rather than do these, cleansing events that they used to, it's now total annihilation because we haven't had any rain this year. So it's like, but because it's weaponized, but what they're really doing is trying to destroy the last strongholds of democracy in America so they can do a power grab on our state, which is, one of the largest economies in the world. So, when you talk about that, it's also just very much part of the war. If they can make people believe that these leaders are, terrible in the terms that you were just talking about, then they can do that power grab that they want to do. So it's very, very sinister.
They equate terrible with caring.
Yeah, right.
Literally, that's the equation. If you listen to them, the whole notion of human beings caring for each other instead of
Yeah,
the leader or the ideology that is determined by the state.
right.
That's why they do it, right? Because they don't want you spending your energy and your time communicating or caring, giving a shit about people around you, because it prevents you from dedicating everything to the power, to the central power. And
Yeah, right.
I mean, some. I know there's the reality is that there's 35% of the human race that is
Always be
authoritarian.
Yeah,
And it doesn't mean that they want to be authoritarians, but they're into it. They're fine
yeah,
with
right.
being, at least they think, I should say, that they're fine with it. Here's the thing, right? So if you assume that all of those people for now are, lost, it's still a minority. It's a very
Right.
small minority. To me, there's a middle group of people who don't, if they actually understood the hoax that was being put on them,
Yeah,
they would be mad and change. The problem is
right.
that they can't get there. They can't get to the
Yeah,
information because they have got all these psyops in front of them. But they're
yeah,
gettable, right? The people who have an internal sort of drive towards authoritarianism,
yeah,
that's going to be a long project. But I do think that there is a solid 70% coalition in the United States that wants, and I don't know what it's going to take, but once it reaches a certain point of holy shit, I think that
yeah.
coalition will have something to say. And will that happen at the polls in 2006 or some other way? 226, sorry.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
we were paying attention
um,
in 2006.
2026
Boy,
or some other
give
way. I
me a
don't know.
time machine, man. Give us a time machine. Can we just go back,
One day at a goddamn time, everybody. One day at a
Yeah, I
time.
know.
You know.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
So, I want to read one more thing from Putin's Kleptocracy, written in 2014, before we see the last clip from John. Do we have one or two more? I think we've got one more, right, Hi-Fi? One more. One more. Okay, great. Because I just want to say that um, in reacting to Russia's annexation of Crimea, the US government announced an unprecedented response. This was written again in 2014. Individual Russian citizens would be subjected to asset seizures and visa bans. Individual elites close to Putin were targeted. Why this response? Because at last, after 14 years dealing with Putin as a legitimate head of state, the US government has finally acknowledged publicly what successive administrations have known privately, that he built a system based on massive plundering on a level not seen in Russia since the czars. And I bring this up because I am comforted by frameworks. We are entering a period of massive plundering of our freedoms, of our resources, of our decency, of our empathy. And what are we going to do about it? We're going to keep having conversations and keep on trying to get people to realize that those of us with empathy, as Jim was just saying, we are in the majority. We do not wish authoritarianism. We may have lost a third of the population to that, but they're not going to like it either. So as Jim said, getting them back's a long project, but getting solidarity among those who already feel this way should be more of a short-term project. And I'm looking forward to seeing some leadership emerge because it's long overdue. Last clip, hi-fi.
It is about having conversations like this. It is about also
Yeah.
saying, look, don't be fooled. What we're dealing with here is, it's not unprecedented, because we have been through this before, and there are people still alive who remember, quite old now, but they remember the rise of fascism the first time round.
Yes.
It never goes away. This virus, unfortunately, the one we thought we'd consigned like smallpox to the
Yep. Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
All right.
Deep thoughts with hi-fi. Deep thoughts with hi-fi.
Deep thoughts with hi-fi. I don't know. I'm just thinking about all this stuff that's been going on and all the crazy, and there's going to be bodies. We just know it. Question is how many. But if you want to really reach out to people, okay, who you voted for? I don't remember anybody voting for Elon. And by the way, didn't he just give a Nazi salute?